The moon base was quiet at night. Most people slept while a few worked. Gia was one of those who stayed awake. She was a nurse at the medical center, the youngest one there. She was small and moved quickly through the white halls, Jia liked the night shift. It was peaceful. She could think while she worked. Tonight was different, though. Everyone was talking about the new patient in the quarantine wing. They caught an alien, another nurse had told her during shift change. They're calling it the dragon. Gia didn't believe it at first. Aliens weren't real. But then she saw the extra guards. She heard the military officers talking in low voices. Something was happening. Dr. Tay stopped her in the hallway. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. "You need to take food to the quarantine wing," he said. He handed her a tray with a bowl of gray paste. "Leave it by the door. Do not go inside. Do not talk to what's in there." "What is in there?" Gia asked. Dr. Tay looked around to make sure no one was listening. "Something not from Earth. That's all you need to know." Gia nodded and took the tray. Her heart beat faster as she walked to the quarantine wing. 2 guards stood outside. They checked her ID badge. "Just leave the food and go," one guard said. "Don't look at it too long." Gia nodded again. The guard opened the door and she stepped into a small room. There was another door with a window made of thick glass. Through it she could see the cell. What she saw made her gasp. The creature was beautiful. It was tall, almost 3 times Gia's height. Its scales shimmered blue and purple like the ocean at sunset. It had 4 limbs like a human, but longer, more graceful. Its face was not human at all. It had golden eyes with slits like a cat's. The dragon was chained to the wall. Heavy metal bands wrapped around its wrists and ankles. Blue light glowed where the chains met the wall, some kind of electric lock. The creature looked at Gia. Their eyes met. Gia didn't see anger or hate in those golden eyes. She saw pain and hunger. She looked down at the gray paste on the tray. It smelled bad, like old medicine. No wonder the creature looked hungry. Gia thought about the soup in her bag. She had made it that morning, rice soup with vegetables, her grandmother's recipe. It was her dinner for the night shift. She shouldn't do it. It was against the rules. The alien might get sick from human food, but those eyes. Gia put the tray down. She reached into her bag and took out her container of soup. It was still warm. She walked to the slot in the door where food could be passed through. The dragon watched her every move. It didn't try to scare her or attack the door. It just watched. Gia pushed the soup container through the slot. "I thought you might like something warm," she said softly. "It's just rice and vegetables." The dragon didn't move at first. It looked at the soup, then at Gia. Slowly it moved forward. The chains rattled as it reached for the container. Its hands were not like human hands. They had long fingers with small scales that shimmered in the light. The dragon picked up the container carefully, as if afraid it might break it. It sniffed the soup. Then, to Gia's surprise, it spoke. The sound wasn't words Gia could understand. It was like music clicks and soft tones that rose and fell. The dragon's scales changed color slightly as it made the sounds, flashing with tiny lights. Gia didn't know what to say. She hadn't expected it to talk. "I'm sorry, I don't understand," she said. The dragon looked at her for a long moment. Then it dipped one long finger into the soup and tasted it. The change was immediate. The dragon's eyes widened. Its scales brightened, shifting from deep blue to a brighter purple. It made that musical sound again, and Gia thought it might be saying thank you. It drank the soup quickly after that. Gia watched, fascinated. When it finished, it placed the empty container back by the slot. Gia should leave now. She had already broken the rules. But something made her stay. "My name is Gia," she said, pointing to herself. "Gia." The dragon tilted its head. Its scales rippled with light. It pointed one long finger at itself and made a sound, a beautiful, complex melody that Gia could never repeat. "I can't say that," Gia said with a small smile. "Can I call you Dragon?" The creature seemed to think about this. Then it nodded. It actually nodded, a human gesture. A noise in the hallway startled Gia. The guards were changing shifts. She needed to go. "I'll come back tomorrow," she whispered. I'll bring more soup. As she turned to leave, she noticed something strange. Where the dragon had spilled a few drops of soup on its chains, the metal looked different. It was changing color from silver to a dull brown. Gia didn't have time to think about it. She grabbed the tray with the untouched paste and hurried out. Everything okay? Asked the new guard. Yes, Gia said. It didn't cause any trouble. That night, Gia couldn't sleep. She kept seeing those golden eyes, hearing that musical voice. The dragon wasn't a monster. It was intelligent. It could communicate. And it was being kept in chains like an animal. She didn't know why it was there or where it came from. But she knew one thing: she would bring soup again tomorrow. And maybe, just maybe, she would learn more about the strange visitor from the stars. What Gia didn't know was that her simple act of kindness had already set something in motion. In the quiet cell, the dragon watched as the soup slowly ate through the metal of its chains. By morning, they would be weak enough to break. Hoon did not like surprises. As head of security for the moon base, surprises meant trouble. And this morning he had a big surprise waiting for him. "Sir, you need to see this," said Officer Day. He pointed to the security screen showing the dragon's cell. Hoon leaned closer. The chains that held the alien looked different. They were darker in some spots, almost brown instead of silver. And was it his imagination, or were they thinner? "When did this happen?" Hoon asked. "We're not sure." The night shift didn't report anything unusual. Hoon frowned. "Show me the video from last night." Officer Day pulled up the footage. Hoon watched as the young nurse entered the outer room. He expected her to leave the food tray and go. Instead, she took something from her bag. "What is she doing?" Hoon muttered. The nurse pushed a container through the slot. Soup. She had given the alien soup instead of the approved food. "Find that nurse," Hoon ordered. "Bring her to my office now." While he waited, Hoon called Dr. Jin, the base's scientist in charge of studying the alien. "Could soup damage the restraints?" he asked when she arrived. Dr. Jin was a small woman with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. She watched the video carefully. "Interesting," she said. "The dragon seems to be communicating with the nurse." "That's not what I asked," Hoon said impatiently. "The restraints are made of a special metal alloy," Dr. Jin explained. "They shouldn't react with ordinary food. But we know very little about the dragon's biology. Perhaps something in its saliva, mixed with the soup. A knock at the door interrupted them. Officer Day entered with Gia, who looked nervous but not afraid. "Do you know why you're here?" Hoon asked her. "Because I gave the dragon soup," Gia said simply. "You broke protocol. You could have endangered everyone on this base." Gia looked down at her hands. "The paste you give it smells terrible." "It was hungry." "It?" Dr. Jin raised an eyebrow. "You refer to the alien as it? Not the creature or the monster?" "It's not a monster," Gia said. "It can understand us. It tried to talk to me." Dr. Jin leaned forward. "Tell me exactly what happened." Gia described her meeting with the dragon, how it had been careful with the soup container, how it had made musical sounds, how its scales had changed color, and it nodded at you. "A human gesture?" Dr. Jin asked. "Yes, it understood me." Dr. Jin turned to Hoon. "I need this nurse assigned to my team." "What?" "She broke the rules," Hoon protested. "And in doing so, she got more response from the dragon than we have in 2 weeks," Dr. Jin said. "The dragon trusts her. We need that." Hoon didn't like it, but he knew Dr. Jin was right. "Fine, but there will be guards present at all times." That afternoon, Gia found herself back at the dragon's cell. This time, Dr. Jin was with her, along with 2 guards and a machine to record everything. "Speak to it like you did before," Dr. Jin instructed. Gia stepped closer to the glass. The dragon was watching her with those golden eyes. It seemed happy to see her. "Hello again," Zhao said. "I brought more soup." The dragon's scales rippled with light. "It made those musical sounds again?" "It's talking," Dr. Jin whispered. "The colors in its scales change with the sounds. It's a complex language." Gia pushed the new container of soup through the slot. As the dragon took it, she noticed its chains. They were definitely thinner where the soup had touched them. The dragon drank the soup, then set the container down. It looked at Gia and made a new sound. Then it pointed to her. "I think it wants to know my name again," Gia said. "I'm Gia," she said, pointing to herself. The dragon repeated a sound. It wasn't exactly Gia, but it was close. "It's trying to say your name." Dr. Jin was excited now. "Ask it for its name." Gia pointed to the dragon. "What's your name?" The dragon made that complex melody again. Then, seeing Gia's confusion, it did something surprising. It used one long finger to draw in the air. Light followed its finger, leaving a glowing symbol that hung in the air for a moment before fading. "It can create light with its scales," Dr. Jin said in wonder. "And it's trying to write its name." For the next hour, Gia and Dr. Jin worked with the dragon. They learned that it could understand some of their words. It could copy simple sounds, and it was very smart. "We need to try something," Dr. Jin said finally. She took out a tablet computer and showed it to the dragon. On the screen was a simple picture of a star. "Star," Dr. Jin said clearly. The dragon looked at the picture. It made a sound and its scales flashed. Dr. Jin showed another picture. "Earth." Again the dragon responded with sound and light. "It's building a vocabulary," Dr. Jin said to Gia. "At this rate, we might have basic communication in days, not months." As they worked, Gia noticed something else. Every time the dragon moved, its chains seemed looser. The spots where soup had spilled were now very thin. Should she tell Dr. Jin? Or Hoon? Gia wasn't sure. The dragon hadn't tried to hurt anyone. It was just talking, learning. At the end of the session, as Dr. Jin packed up her equipment, the dragon looked directly at Gia. It pointed to the chains, then to the empty soup container. Then it put one finger to its lips, another human gesture, asking for silence. It knew. It knew the soup was weakening the chains. And it wanted Gia to keep bringing it. Gia felt her heart beat faster. What should she do? If the dragon escaped, would it hurt people? Or was it just scared, a prisoner far from home? As she left the cell, Gia made her decision. Tomorrow she would bring more soup. But she would also learn more about this visitor from the stars. Why was it here? What did it want? And most importantly, could she trust it? 3 days passed. Each day Gia brought soup to the dragon. Each day its chains grew weaker. And each day they learned more about each other. Dr. Jin created a simple picture language on her tablet. The dragon learned it quickly. Soon it could answer basic questions by pointing to pictures or drawing with light. "Where do you come from?" Dr. Jin asked on the 4th day. The dragon pointed to a picture of stars, then used its finger to draw a constellation Gia didn't recognize. "Another solar system," Dr. Jin said. "Far away. Why did you come here?" Gia asked. The dragon hesitated. It looked at the guards, then back at Gia. It pointed to a picture of an eye, then to a picture of Earth. "To watch us?" Gia guessed. The dragon nodded. "Are there more like you coming?" This question came from Hoon, who had started attending the sessions. The dragon shook its head no. It pointed to itself, then held up one finger. "It came alone," Dr. Jin translated. Hoon didn't look convinced. "Ask it about weapons." Dr. Jin showed pictures of guns, bombs, and spaceships with lasers. The dragon's scales darkened to a deep blue, almost black. It shook its head firmly and made a sound that even Gia could tell was negative. "I don't think it's a soldier," Gia said. "Maybe it's a scientist like Dr. Jin." The dragon's scales brightened at this. It nodded eagerly and pointed to Dr. Jin, then to itself. "A researcher," Dr. Jin said. "It came to study us." Hoon frowned. "That's what it wants us to think." After the session ended, Hoon pulled Gia aside in the hallway. "You're getting too friendly with it," he said. "Remember, we don't know its true intentions." "It hasn't tried to hurt anyone," Gia pointed out. "Not while it's chained up," Hoon said. "Keep bringing the soup if Dr. Jin says it helps communication. But watch yourself." That night, Gia couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the dragon, alone and far from home. Was it really dangerous? Or was Hun just being careful? She decided to learn more. Using her medical badge, she accessed the base's computer system. She searched for files about the dragon's capture. What she found shocked her. The dragon ship had crashed on the dark side of the moon 6 weeks ago. It hadn't attacked anyone. In fact, it had been injured in the crash and was trying to repair its ship when the military found it. There were videos of the capture. The dragon had not fought back. It had raised its hands in a universal gesture of surrender. But the soldiers had shot it with stun weapons anyway, then dragged it unconscious to the base. Worse, there were medical reports. Tests they had done on the dragon while it was sedated. Samples of skin and blood taken without permission. Plans for more invasive tests, and at the end of the file, a note from the base commander, Asset D7 to be transferred to Earth facility for complete biological study once communication method established. Jia knew what that meant. They would take the dragon apart to see how it worked. They would kill it. The next day, Jia brought soup as usual. But she was quiet, troubled by what she had learned, the dragon noticed. When the guards were distracted talking to Dr. Jin, it made a soft sound to get Jia's attention. It pointed to her, then made a gesture near its heart, then tilted its head in question. Are you asking if I'm sad? Jia whispered. The dragon nodded. I found out what they plan to do to you, she said very quietly. It's not right. The dragon's scales dimmed. It already knew. Dr. Jin called Jia over to help with new pictures. As they worked, Jia noticed the dragon was drawing something with light when the guards weren't looking. A map of the base. It was showing her paths through the building, ways to get to different areas. It was planning to escape. At the end of the session, Dr. Jin was excited. We're making great progress. Tomorrow we'll try more complex questions. But as Jia turned to leave, the dragon caught her eye. It pointed to the soup container, then to the chains, which were now very thin in spots. Then it held up 3 fingers. 3 more days. In 3 more days, the chains would be weak enough to break. That night, Jia faced the hardest choice of her life. Should she help the dragon escape? Or should she tell Hun what was happening? She decided to learn one more thing first. During the next day's session, when Dr. Jin stepped out to take a call, Jia quickly showed the dragon a new picture on the tablet. It was a simple drawing of the dragon hurting a human. The dragon's reaction was strong. Its scales turned almost black. It shook its head hard and made a sound that seemed like it was upset. It pointed to a picture of people talking peacefully, then to itself and Jia. You don't want to hurt us, Jia said. You just want to talk? The dragon nodded. Then it did something new. It placed one hand over its heart, then reached out toward Jia, a promise. A connection? Jia made her decision. That night, she went to the medical supply room. She took a small bottle of sleeping gas, enough to make the night guards sleep for 10 minutes. Not enough to hurt them, just enough time. She also took a key card from Dr. Jin's desk. It would open doors throughout the base. As she walked back to her room, Jia passed the lab where they kept the dragon's things. Through the window, she saw its suit of shimmering material that looked like its scales, and a small device that might be a communicator. The dragon would need those to call for help. To get home. In her room, Jia packed a bag with the gas, the key card, and a map of the base she had drawn. Tomorrow night would be her last shift before 3 days off. No one would expect her back until after the weekend. By then, if everything went right, the dragon would be gone, and so would she. Because once she helped it escape, she could never come back to the base. Jia looked out her small window at the earth hanging in the black sky. She had always followed the rules. She had always done what was expected, but sometimes doing the right thing meant breaking the rules. Tomorrow night she would bring soup to a dragon one last time. Jia's hands shook as she prepared the soup. This batch was special. She added extra salt and a splash of vinegar, things that would make the metal break down faster. Tonight was the night. She packed her bag carefully. The soup, the sleeping gas, the key card, and a small medical kit. She also added a warm jacket. The path to the dragon ship would take them outside the base, across the moon's surface. It would be very cold. As she walked to work, Jia saw Mina, her friend who worked in the transportation department. You look worried, Maina said. Is everything okay? Gia almost told her friend everything, but that would put Maina in danger too. It's just tired, she said instead. Well, be careful tonight. There's a big meeting about the alien. All the important people will be there. Gia's heart beat faster. What meeting? They're deciding when to send it to Earth. I heard some scientists from a big lab are coming to get it soon. This was bad news. Gia had thought they had more time. When are they coming? Tomorrow morning, Mina said. Hey, are you sure you're okay? You look pale. I'm fine, Gia lead. Just surprised they're moving so fast. Mina nodded. Everyone's excited about what we can learn from it. Dr. Jin says its technology is years ahead of ours. As Mina walked away, Gia felt sick. The plan had to work tonight. There would be no second chance. When she got to work, the medical center was quiet. Most of the staff were at the meeting. Perfect. Gia went to the locker room and changed into her uniform. She hid her bag inside her medical cart and headed toward the quarantine wing. Only one guard was at the door tonight. The other must be at the meeting too. Just me tonight, Gia said with a smile. Everyone's at the big meeting. The guard nodded. They're deciding what to do with our scaly friend. About time, if you ask me. That thing gives me the creeps. Gia pushed her cart into the outer room. Through the glass, she could see the dragon waiting. It knew something was happening tonight. I'll be quick, Gia told the guard. Just need to check its vitals and give it dinner. The guard waved her in without looking up from his phone. Inside the room, Gia moved fast. She took out the soup and pushed it through the slot. The dragon took it and immediately poured it over the weakest parts of the chains. We have to hurry, Gia whispered. They're sending you to Earth tomorrow? The dragon's scales flashed with alarm. It pulled hard on the chains. They stretched but didn't break yet. Gia took out the sleeping gas. I'm going to make the guard sleep for a few minutes. When I come back, be ready to move fast. The dragon nodded. It pointed to the ceiling where a small camera watched them. Don't worry. The cameras record to a system I can access. I'll delete this part later. Gia took a deep breath and went back to the outer room. The guard was still looking at his phone. Excuse me, she said. I think something's wrong with the air system in there. Could you check it? The guard sighed and stood up. As he walked toward the door, Gia pretended to trip. The small gas canister in her hand sprayed directly into his face. The guard's eyes widened in surprise, then closed as he fell to the floor. I'm sorry, Gia whispered as she dragged him to a chair. He would wake up with a headache, but otherwise fine. She used his keycard to open the inner door. The dragon was pulling hard on its chains. With a loud snap, they broke apart. The dragon was free. It stood to its full height. Much taller than Gia. For a moment she felt afraid. What if she was wrong? What if it hurt her? But the dragon simply placed one hand over its heart, the same gesture it had made before. A promise. We need to get your things from the lab, Gia said. Then we have to reach your ship. The dragon followed her out of the cell. It moved quietly for such a large being. In the hallway, it looked around with curiosity. This was the first time it had seen the base beyond its cell. They reached the lab without meeting anyone. Gia used Dr. Jin's keycard to open the door. Inside, the dragon's suit and devices were laid out on tables. The dragon quickly put on its suit. It fit like a second skin over its scales. It also took a small round device that glowed with soft light. Is that how you call for help? Gia asked. The dragon nodded. It pointed to the device, then up to the stars, then made a motion like something coming down. Your people will come for you, Gia understood. They left the lab and headed toward the airlock that would take them outside. They had to cross a main hallway where people might see them. Gia checked around the corner. The hall was empty. Quick now, she whispered. They were halfway across when a door opened. Dr. Jin stepped out. Looking down at her tablet. She looked up and froze. The dragon froze too. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Dr. Jin's eyes went to Gia, full of questions. They're going to kill it, Gia said. I couldn't let that happen. Dr. Jin looked at the dragon, then back at Gia. She seemed to be thinking hard. The east airlock has fewer cameras, she said finally. And there's a maintenance rover parked outside. The keys are in it. Gia couldn't believe what she was hearing. You're helping us? I'm a scientist, Dr. Jin said. I want to learn, not destroy. What they plan to do is wrong, she looked at the dragon. Go home. Tell your people we're not all like this. The dragon's scales flashed with colors. It reached out one long hand and gently touched Dr. Jin's shoulder. Go now, Dr. Jin said. I'll tell them I saw you heading west. Gia and the dragon ran to the east airlock. Inside, they found spacesuits hanging on the wall. Put this on over your suit, Gia told the dragon. It will protect you outside? The dragon looked at the human spacesuit, then shook its head. It pointed to its own suit and made a gesture like it was enough. Your suit works in space? Gia asked, surprised. The dragon nodded. It helped Gia put on her spacesuit, its long fingers careful with the complicated fastenings. As Gia put on her helmet, alarms began to sound throughout the base. They know you're gone, she said. We have to hurry. They entered the airlock. As the air hissed out, Gia felt fear rise in her chest. There was no going back now. She was helping an alien escape. She was breaking every rule, but when she looked at the dragon, standing tall and free for the first time since its capture, she knew she was doing the right thing. The outer door opened. Before them stretched the gray surface of the moon, and beyond that, the endless black of space filled with stars. The dragon stepped out first, then turned to help Gia. Together they moved toward the small rover Dr. Jin had mentioned behind them. Lights flashed as the base went into full alert. Soon, guards would come looking for them. The race to freedom had begun. The moon rover bounced over the gray dust. Gia drove as fast as she could. The dragon sat beside her, its tall body folded to fit in the small vehicle. How far to your ship? Gia asked through her helmet radio. The dragon pointed to a group of hills in the distance. It held up 5 fingers, then pointed to the small clock on the rover's dashboard. 5 hours? Gia shook her head. We don't have that long. They'll catch us. The dragon thought for a moment. It pointed to itself, then made a running motion with its fingers. You can go faster without me, Gia realized. The dragon shook its head firmly. It pointed to both of them together, then to the hills. It would not leave her behind. Behind them, lights appeared on the dark moon surface. Base vehicles were following them. They're coming, Gia said. The dragon looked back, then reached for the rover controls. Its long fingers moved quickly, pressing buttons and turning dials Gia hadn't noticed before. The rover's engine made a new sound. It moved faster, much faster than it should be able to. What did you do? Gia asked in surprise. The dragon's scales flashed with what might have been a smile. It had changed something in the rover, made it better with its knowledge. They sped across the moon, leaving their pursuers behind. But Gia knew it wouldn't last. The base would send faster vehicles, maybe even the small shuttle used for repairs to the moon station. After an hour of driving, they reached a deep crater. The dragon pointed down into it. Your ship is in there? Gia asked. The dragon nodded. It took control of the rover, driving carefully down the steep side of the crater. At the bottom, hidden in shadow, was a shape that didn't belong on the moon. The dragon ship was smaller than Gia had expected, about the size of a small bus. It was smooth and dark with no sharp edges. It looked like a water drop frozen in space. As they got closer, part of the ship's side began to glow. A door appeared where there had been only smooth surface before. They stopped the rover. The dragon got out first, moving easily in the low gravity. It helped Gia, who was less graceful in her bulky spacesuit. Inside the ship, lights came on as the dragon entered. The air hissed as the door closed behind them. The dragon touched a panel on the wall, and Gia felt the pressure change. Can I take my helmet off? She asked. The dragon nodded. It helped her remove the helmet and the spacesuit. The air in the ship smelled fresh, with a hint of something sweet like flowers. The inside of the ship was beautiful. The walls glowed with soft light that changed colors like the dragon's scales. There were no sharp corners, everything curved gently. It felt alive somehow. The dragon led Gia to what must be the control room. A large window showed the crater outside. Seats that looked like they were made of the same material as the dragon's suit rose from the floor. The dragon sat at what must be the pilot's seat. It touched panels that glowed under its fingers. Screens appeared in the air, showing the area around the ship. One screen showed vehicles at the top of the crater. The base had found them. The dragon worked faster, its fingers dancing over the controls. The ship hummed to life. Lights flashed on all the panels, then the dragon stopped. It looked at one screen and made a sound Gia hadn't heard before. It sounded like worry. What's wrong? Gia asked. The dragon pointed to a diagram of the ship. Part of it was flashing red. The ship is damaged, Gia guessed. From the crash. The dragon nodded. It pointed to the red area, then made a motion like something flying, then shook its head. You can't fly with it broken, Gia understood. The dragon touched another panel. A new screen appeared, showing stars and what looked like a map. It pointed to a spot on the map, then held up its small round device that it had taken from the lab. You need to call for help, Gia said. Your people can come get you. The dragon nodded. It activated the device, which began to glow brighter. It made the same pointing gesture to the map, then held up its hands in a way that asked, How long? How long until they come? Gia thought about it. I don't know. How far away are they? The dragon pointed to a star on the map, then held up 2 fingers. 2 days? Gia guessed. The dragon shook its head. It pointed to the moon going around the earth, then the earth going around the sun. 2 months. Gia tried again. The dragon nodded. Gia single quotes as heart sank. We don't have 2 months. The base will find us long before that. As if to prove her point, the screen showed vehicles starting to descend into the crater. The dragon thought for a moment. Then it pointed to Gia, then to itself, then made a walking motion with its fingers across the map. You want us to go somewhere else? Gia asked. Hide until your people come? The dragon nodded. It pointed to Earth. Earth? Gia was surprised. You want to go to Earth? But there are so many people there. Someone would see you. The dragon shook its head. It touched another panel, and a new image appeared. It showed a forest, deep and green, far from any city. A remote place, Gia understood, where no one would find us. The dragon nodded. It pointed to the damaged part of the ship again, then to a smaller shape attached to it. A smaller ship? Gia asked. An escape pod? The dragon made an agreeing sound. It was suggesting they take the escape pod to Earth and hide until help came. Gia thought about it. Going back to the base meant prison for her and death for the dragon. Staying on the moon meant capture, probably within hours. Earth was their only chance. Okay, she said. Let's go to Earth. The dragon's scales brightened. It worked quickly, preparing the escape pod. Outside, the base vehicles were getting closer. The dragon led Gia to a small room at the back of the ship. Inside was what looked like a seed pod, big enough for both of them. The dragon helped Gia into it, then climbed in beside her, the pod sealed around them, snug but not uncomfortable. Through a small window, Gia could see the inside of the ship one last time before the pod detached. There was a moment of stillness. Then a great push as the pod launched away from the ship. Gia felt the pressure as they accelerated. Heading toward the blue planet that hung in the black sky. As they sped away, Gia saw flashes of light behind them. The base had reached the ship. But they were too late. The dragon touched Gia's hand gently. Its scales glowed with warm colors. It made a sound that Gia somehow understood, even without words. Thank you. You're welcome, Gia said. That's what friends do. The dragon's eyes widened at the word friends. Then its scales rippled with the brightest colors Gia had seen yet. As the escape pod raced toward Earth. Gia thought about everything that had happened since she first brought soup to a chained dragon. She had broken rules. She had left her home. She had risked everything, but looking at the dragon beside her, no longer a prisoner but a friend, she knew she would do it all again. Sometimes, a small act of kindness could change everything. A bowl of soup could melt chains. A moment of compassion could build a bridge between worlds, and somewhere in the stars, the dragon's people were already on their way. When they arrived, they would find not just one of their own waiting for them, but a human too. The first true meeting between their worlds would not be one of fear and chains, but of friendship and trust, all because a human girl brought soup to a dragon.